Welcome to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we dive deep and answer the ultimate question: how did you hack into tech sales? Each week, we bring you inspiring stories, proven strategies, and insider tips from top performers who've cracked the code to break into tech sales and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, making a career pivot, or ready to level up, this is your go-to space for actionable advice and real-world success stories. Let's crack the code together, because hacking into tech sales isn't just a dream, it's your next move. Now with your host, the founder of Tech Sales Funnels and the tech sales hacker himself, Dayvisson Dasilva.
Welcome everyone to another Tech Sales Funnels podcast. This is Dayvisson Dasilva, your host, the Tech Sales Hacker. Today, I'm super excited to bring to the stage Patrick Dubois. I met Patrick via LinkedIn. A lot of my network actually comes from LinkedIn, so I'm super excited to use this platform and teach people how to use it. But Patrick, super humble guy, just reached out just to chat and talk, and we after a few minutes, probably 30 minutes to an hour, we figured out, hey, we might as well just leverage each other's knowledge and help each other's community. So he has a lot of experience in sales. I'm super excited to have him here today. And usually in these podcasts, so far I have interviewed a lot of sellers, a lot of people who have done an amazing job in tech sales, and they're teaching us how to hack into tech sales. Today, I'm bringing a different flavor. I'm bringing a professional in sales who has a very unique perspective and understanding of superpowers, right? How can we leverage our superpowers in sales? And you can 100% leverage those superpowers as you try to find your next tech sales role, right? As you try to break into tech sales, you have to recognize what's your strengths and your abilities and what makes you unique. So Patrick is an expert of that. I'm super excited to dive deeper into this conversation. So I'm bringing Patrick to the stage now. Welcome, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Davidson. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's we talked about a few days ago, and we decided that this will be a good conversation.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Can you try to make a little special introduction here, but let's hear from you a little bit more. Like, who's Patrick? What is Patrick doing these
Yeah,
days? And let's go
exactly.
from
Who
there.
is this guy you got on here? What's he all about? Well, to kind of sum it up, I've had lots of different careers in my life, and most of it's been involved with the animal health industry for about over 30 years. And I started off in the field doing 100% commission roles. You basically eat what you kill kind of scenario, all the way up to middle manager and managing a team of 10 across the Western United States. So I've been lucky enough to be find what I really like to do, and I love sales. However, I didn't always like it. So there's definitely a great story behind that. And if your listeners want to know more about me, they can certainly go to my website or to LinkedIn. I have a lot of different aspects of my life that you can see on there to see what the kind of flavor is with who's this guy talking about this stuff. But I think it's important for people to understand who I am, where I come from, why is it important for me, kind of what we're going to talk about. And those are, to me, that's how I found you. And that's how I
Mhm.
always think that's great. LinkedIn is a terrific network to get and look at what people offer and how they do things. And I think it's important to see like their body of work. And then I also do a newsletter with sales and just give some of my own tips and tricks, things that have helped me. And my vision overall is to really help people, find their superpower. And it's not a big secret because it's already in you. My job really is just to help people find out what that is, and then really help them and kind of shepherd them along through that and how to use that superpower.
I love that. Well, thanks so much. I think you could be talking for way more, right? Much longer than
Yeah.
that. Introduce yourself, but uh, hard to summarize a career in like a minute or two. But you did a really good job, Patrick. let's dive right into it. The topic. What's you all about right now? What are the things that you talk about it? I know you mentioned already about the superpowers. You mentioned that it's not a secret, but it's hard for a lot of people to recognize. So let's just go right in and uh,
Yeah.
how do you help people, right? What do you do usually do?
Mhm. It's funny. I just submitted a newsletter out, and it's hit LinkedIn. So I think it's really good for if anyone just to kind of look at that, and it does speak to the heart of what I usually speak about is that your superpower is already in you, right? Right? You already have it. People always say, "Oh, what's the magic?" or how do you do what you do, and all that. I said, part of it's already there. And as with most human beings, our strength is already in us. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to figure out what that is,
Hmm.
and sometimes um, it's not. I really like to work with clients and just general people overall who really struggle with who are their what either their identity in sales, or they've read all the sales books, and they're trying to find that magic, potion that would make their sales skyrocket. And I love those conversations because most of the time it's not in a book,
Hmm.
even though I do think that I do use some of the literature that's out there to kind of help me. It gives me a bit of a framework to use too. But most of my work is really just talking to the clients and really listening to what they struggle with. And then I really dive deep into, what are their strengths. And I call it a superpower just because it's a cool word and I think it's kind of fun and
Yes.
everyone wants a superpower. I mean, I'm sure when you're a kid growing up, you're thinking, man, if I had X-ray vision, or if I could leap, or I could fly, or whatever it is. So, but if you look at the way we relate to each other, and then over a course of our life, my perception anyway, this is just the rules according to Patrick. So, I think we focus on so many of the negative things, some of the things that we don't do well,
Mm.
that it inhibits the things that we do really well automatically. So, for example, if Davison, you do something really well, you may look around and go, well, of course I can do that because, that's just me. Doesn't everybody have that strength or have that skill? And not everybody does. So we automatically discount it like
Interesting.
it's not a strength. It's just like, well, of course I have it. It's assumed. So part of my work is really helping people understand, like, no, that's really important for you to understand. And majority of the time, that when we start talking about what your strengths are, what you do really well, you can start kind of daisy chaining some of the things along that make sense. Like, oh, well, people always tell me I'm this, but I never really, accepted it. I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
a word I can use. And when you really accept and really own that that's your strength, pretty soon, your chest puffs up a little bit and you kind of walk in, you walk confidently. And that's what I really coach to is I want people to walk into any environment and stone cold what your strengths are, and the confidence that you exude when you have it, and you walk into any kind of meeting, people are like, wow, I want whatever that guy's got. And if I'm talking about a product and I'm really motivated by it, or a service, people can sense that. It's palpable. People go, wow, I really want whatever he's got. I may not even need it. And part of that is because you're really focusing on what you do really well, and you're not scared about things that you don't do well. You accept it. Like, listen, I have some shortcomings myself, right? I know that I'm not good at some of the things, and I struggle with it too. So I'm not always, perfect. I do coach myself quite a bit on this, but I also know what I do really well, and so I have to remind myself, hey, Patrick, you do really well in this. So let's lean into it, really push hard in this area, because I think this is going to really help out in whatever if it's a client, or I have another business as well with a winery. So I kind of use my own life and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
to coach myself to really kind of keep on mastering it. And it's never done. It's not like you can say, "Oh, I figured it out," because there'll always be challenges. There'll always be someone who's a naysayer. But once you figure it out, you can really lean into it. It just takes lots of practice, and then pretty soon you feel like, "Oh, okay, I understand what he's talking about." Super important.
Interesting. I love that. How do you? So you touched so many good points, and we could go so many directions. How do you help someone who's completely lost, like that has no self awareness of their superpowers? Like you mentioned a couple of
Mhm.
examples, and they don't know where to start. How do you help those people? Is that asking questions? Is that like doing an assessment? How that works? Like, how do you initiate?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we talked about in our first time the methodology of sales. I kind of took our conversation quite a bit from the first time, and I loved it because it's important for people to understand, like, okay, how do I work with somebody, or what's this process like? Because it's not, you know I don't want to say it's not easy, because it's very revealing. So you have to come to the table ready to really learn, and it's going to be uncomfortable because you're going to learn about yourself.
Mm,
And I have worked with people who are uncomfortable with that for different reasons. And I'm not a psychologist, listen, but I do know that it's super important to be self-reflective and to have some, as you said, awareness or consciousness about who you are. So it does start with someone really saying, "Hey, I'm ready to kind of look around and see what that's like." I have them fill out some forms to help me kind of gauge where they're at, what their biggest struggle is, and I kind of dial it into what their specific needs are.
mhm.
And I wish it was one size fits all. That would make my job so much easier. But we're it's human beings, right? And so we're not.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the fun part. And to me, it fits right into my personal strength, which is I love figuring out other people's strengths, and
Mm,
I love having conversation with them and say, "Oh, you're really good at this. Has anyone ever told you that?" That kind of stuff. So once they fill out some forms, we have a conversation. I usually direct him towards my favorite book, which is Strength Finders.
oh, love that. Yeah.
And to me, it has made the most impact on my professional career, which also blends over to my personal life too. But once you take the Strength Finders test and you get to your top five strengths, that's usually the first thing I have them do, because it's a good benchmark and it's a place for us to start.
Mhm.
And if you've already taken it, great. If you've taken DISC or Myers Briggs and all that, I can work with those as well. But I like the way Strength Finders uses the word specifically. And most of my clients, and even most of the people I manage, when they see their results, it's pretty spot on. I haven't had someone say, "Man, this is way off,"
Okay.
especially their number one strength. And that's what I like to start with first.
I love that. I love this book. I love the methodology of Strength Finder, and I liked. Well, talking about superpowers, I like to think that one of my superpowers is the ability to actually know other people's superpowers, which is one of yours that you just
Yeah.
described.
Yeah.
As a career coach, that's what I do a lot. And then one of the things that I try people recognize, when as you go through application process, they go through interview processes, their superpowers have to come out very, very clear. And I try help people get in on their top three. I'm spot on those. I don't do an assessment. The strength finder assessment is amazing, and my number one strength that comes on strength finder is empathy. It's the ability to. It really is. Sometimes I don't know how to explain. I know how people are
Mhm.
thinking. I know how people are feeling. I know it's just weird. I tell people it comes from my mom. I feel like a witch.
Yeah.
She's always
No, there's no
saying,
need to explain it. To me, everyone wants to say, "I don't know where it comes from." I'm thinking, like, who cares where it comes from, dude? You got it. So just own it.
yeah,
Don't make excuses for it. Empathy is a superpower for sure, because, like you said, if you're like more of an empath, I guess, if people want to look up that way, it's really important because you sense emotions and you can see things right away, and that's amazing. I think that's a great strength for sure.
yeah, it comes very handy for me in sales, right? When I'm talking to clients, I can see their nonverbals. I can see what It's so weird.
Yeah, like you're super sensitive to non. I'm assuming you're super sensitive to nonverbal, so you can tell right away when someone's like shut down, or they're not buying it, or they have some issues. And as a coach, must be the same thing. You think like, okay, they're not getting it, or I need to come out of a different route, because I can just tell, even though they're not saying it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
No, yeah.
I yeah.
No, I love that test, and thanks for bringing that up. And I think people can do actually for free, right? There's all sorts of versions out there online that people
Totally.
can take.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it online. You get the book. I don't really, to me, it doesn't really matter as long as they get it and they get their top five. You can go pretty deep into Strength Finders and do lots more with it. And I've talked to different people. I've talked to people that are certified coaches with Strength Finders too, which is
Mm,
terrific. And they have so much they can bring to the party. But I think for listeners or for anyone who's kind of struggling in this area or is stuck, that's the term I use quite a bit. Is if you're stuck and you don't know which way to go, start there. The other thing I suggest too is in conjunction with it, or if you're really uncomfortable with having a personality test for whatever reason, I've had them. Ask your family and friends
Mm,
what you do really well and start listening to what they say and then write them all down, as many as you can. If you have 10 friends and family members, spouses or mothers, fathers, whatever, brothers, ask them all,
mhm,
write them all down, and you'll start to get a bit of a theme about who you are, and then boil them all down to your top five. And then from there, you can really start thinking like, oh, so this is how I'm coming across. This is how people see me. And is it matching what's inside your brain, how you think you're coming across,
mm.
right? Because if I say that, I'm coming across as a tiger. And they're like, yeah, not so much. Maybe you're a llama, or maybe you're just a kitty cat or whatever. So making sure there's a connection between that, what people are saying and seeing from you, and then what you think. I have found that to be super enlightening for people because they go, wow, I wasn't even aware that's how I'm coming across, right? And so it's just raising your consciousness level quite a bit with who you are. And as I said, it comes in different waves. It comes in different paths. It's not always, you know, I wish it was always direct. And then people accepting that about who they are is is definitely the process. There's some resistance to that I have found. Other people are like, hot damn, I love this stuff. And thank God,
Mm.
because I was wondering about this about myself, and everyone was telling me something else, and I didn't believe it, and now I do. And that's a terrific. So now we can get to work. It's such a great moment, Davidson, when people, find out what they really do well, like their own, then a lot of things drop away. It's so much fun.
Would you say that most of the time that when they hear back from the other people, like let's say their top 10 friends or family, it's would you say that comes more like the strengths, the positives, or the negatives about that person? What have you
Oh,
seen?
positives. Yeah,
Yes.
positives for sure. And a lot of it's a personality. It's like, oh, he's so
Mhm,
funny and you're always so kind, you're always so loving, and all those things, which are always terrific. You can you can dial it down. Or when I say condense it, you can kind of figure out like, okay, everyone's saying I'm really nice, I'm very easy to get along with. And now you can start interpreting that. And that's the work that I do is that, some of the stuff is, hey, everyone says I'm really nice, right? Or I'm really easy to get along with. And it's okay, let's break that down a little further. And what
mm,
does that really mean? Does that mean if you're empathetic, or do you have a lot of, are you altruistic? I can kind of break it down a little bit to get more definitive terms.
mhm.
But um, there's still, it's still great because someone says, people say I'm always so funny or I'm always this. And it's super helpful to know that because most of us go, oh, of course I'm that way. And then when they hear that over and over and over again, it really cements in the brain that that's who they are. I don't care what it is usually, but yeah, most people don't say, yeah, you're an ass, or you're really hard to get along with, or most family and friends, not necessarily. But I do talk about that
No,
usually. I
that's
said,
good.
okay, so what's the other side of it? Right, you got to have the other side. Not everyone likes me, which it happens.
I asked that question. I knew the answer, but I asked just to confirm because I teach a interpersonal communication class for the last 5 years, and one of the exercises we do is exactly what you just said. Go to ten
Right.
of people, ask what they think about you. They come back surprised every single time because they always judging themselves much lower than other people
Yeah.
think. They always think about
Yeah.
the negatives, and
Yeah.
that's where the self esteem and the self awareness come from.
Hmm.
That's a great exercise. I love that one.
Hmm.
What do you think? Like we're talking here to the sellers and tech sellers and this community of people who sometimes they think like they have to be extroverts. Or sometimes the introverts have an advantage because they listen better, and in communication is all about listening. What are what have you seen? Even in your career as a tech seller, in sales in general, the superpowers of sellers. What are the superpowers? What makes a good seller, right? Out of all those powers that you have analyzed over the years.
Yeah. Most of us have a really good um, skill of listening. And it's I call it active listening, or really being engaged into the conversation and not jumping ahead with what your next sentence is going to be out of your mouth, or what you would say immediately. You have to really listen to them all the way. So there's a book I always recommend. It's on my website for under my resources, called QBQ, the question behind the question.
Mm,
And what I love about that is most of us have, when we throw an objection out, or we're not buying the product or the services, whatever it is, we're sometimes giving a softball answer or objection, and I know there's usually something behind that question, so something else, like the question behind the question, so what that really is. And my experiences is those good salespeople are really patient during that listening stage and understanding the buyer or the company, or whatever you're doing, because it's such an important part of the game of sales. And if you blow through that and you're not really listening, I've seen it, watched it, coached it through it, is that you won't get the sale, or you won't get the relationship, even though you have a really superior product and that's the product they want. I've seen it where they go no, and you come back to it, they say, well, because you weren't really listening to what I was saying, but I provided you what you wanted. Yeah, but you
mm,
weren't listening to me. So I think listening is an underrated skill. And people always say, "Oh yeah, I listen," and then I watch them in their sales, or we have some examples, have them tell me what happened. And when you listen really well and you understand what the pain point is, or what their challenge of it is, then you can ask a really important question, during that listening time. Because if you just use your canned questions that we all have, then you're not getting to the heart of what the real reason is behind that. So I think, I mean, it's listening, and then asking really good questions is probably 1A, from a
mm.
sales standpoint.
Okay, that's I can see that. Listening and waiting for the right time to ask the right questions. I love it. For this community, who are a lot of people are trying to get into tech sales, transition to tech sales, which that's kind of my sole job, is how do they hack into it? How do they get the offer?
Mhm.
That six figures offer, right? The exciting opportunity. What would you think they should be communicating as their superpowers in order to get that job? Sometimes it's hard to, let's say, okay, we talked about listening and asking questions. How do they transfer that into the interview process or the hiring process? Um,
Well, I think for interviews, one thing to be very upfront, and I love this when I was interviewing people, is if they knew their strengths right away. It was such an important part of me to go, okay, good, they know themselves. If they're coming across and they don't really know that, and I ask the question, can you tell me your top five strengths, Davidson? And they
mm,
don't know that, or they struggle with that question, then I kind of know. I mean, it's not a deal killer necessarily, but I go, okay, they're not very aware, or they've never been coached that way. They, I can see maybe a diamond in the rough again, because me, as a maximizer for that, I really like to see people's strength, and I can say, man, there's something in there, and I go, oh, that's so cool. I want to work with that, and take that little sand and make it into a pearl,
mm,
and see them blossom. So, part of my challenge is like, okay, easy, Patrick. We need to get them through this process first. So, but if you come to me and say, hey, here's my five strengths, I think that's it's a difference maker, right? When you're interviewing, you want to stand out in all the right ways. So knowing your strengths is important. As a technique that I used is, if I don't get that, I did the same thing like you asked your students to do, is say, okay, what would your family and friends say your top five strengths are? And then typically they'll sometimes shift, and then they'll lighten up, and then they'll talk about all their stuff. And so then I can kind of see a little bit more. But I think for anyone in the interview process, if you can tell your interviewer, here's my strengths, here's what I bring to the party, and you feel completely comfortable with that, whether you get the job or not, or whether or not they see value in you, you're saying this is who I am. And so there's confidence even in the screen that,
mm,
wow, this guy really knows himself, and he or she is the right person for this role, or I don't see him in this role, but I can really see him in something else. because they
Mm.
really are strong in this area. So I would recommend anyone, whether in tech sales or whatever, to really understand that and bring that into the interview and be upfront with it. Say right away, hey, I know, let me say, Patrick, tell me a little about yourself and what is your career? And I can tell them all that and say, listen, and here's my top 5 strengths. And then boom, this is number 1, and this is why it's a strength for me. 2, this is my strength. This is why, this is what I can do and how I can do it. So it's really important to kind of tease out, what that strength is. And man, you can imagine if someone did that interview, you'd be thinking like, "Sheesh,
Wow.
this guy's so awesome," or "This lady is awesome." I would then the temperature of the interview goes from to like, okay, I'm paying attention, and then from then on, using your strengths. They say, oh, the hypothetical question. So tell me about a time that you had to
Mm.
deal with a difficult customer. All those ones. Utilize your in those examples as well. And I'm telling you, hammer it home like this is what I do well, and here's how I handle the difficult customer using my particular strengths. It's so
Wow.
impressive. I can't tell you, people just go, wow, those are really good. I set people up for interviews. I've had tons of people get promoted because this is how I work with them. It's okay, you got an interview. Here's what you need to say. Here's what you want to questions. I set it all up, and then after the interview, I get calls back from the interview. They go, damn, dude, they were great. And I go, yeah, because I worked my ass off to make sure they had a really good interview. And the candidates were like, this is so good, Patrick. I have never had someone work with that. So I think that's important for anybody in any sales or any kind of role to have that locked in.
Absolutely love it. I never ever heard, someone leading with that line. Tell me about yourself, and then you just go right in on the 5 strengths of. You can even say, hey, I just took my
Yeah,
5 strengths test, and those are my top thing, and boom, 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 and then you can kind of leverage and stay true to your strengths during the entire interview. That was
yeah,
amazing. That was really good. I actually wrote down here how to leverage your superpowers during the interview process, and you totally nailed it.
awesome,
That question.
great.
Um, People can put the strengths on, put it on LinkedIn, put it in the resume, make sure it's visible. I think I have on my resume and on my LinkedIn my 5 top strengths. That's awesome. What else can there's so many places we can go here, but I feel like, okay, so once you realize your superpowers, and let's maybe go on the not the devil advocate, but on the other route. We hear a lot about it's better to concentrate on your strengths and then just double down on those than trying to fix your weaknesses. What do you think about that? And if you do have a weakness and you want to make it better, how do you go about it? What would be the good strategy?
Yeah. And I do agree. Double down on your strengths, but you will have indications or along the way that, hey, this job or this role really requires me to do X, and I'm not really good at it. So, part of it is if it's mission critical for your role or for what you're doing, and it's not a strength of yours, then it definitely is an opportunity to learn. And uh, I'm also a big believer in, hey, we all are reinventing ourselves all the time. We should be, anyway, in my opinion. And we should be always stretching ourselves or our capabilities. And if it's not a strength for you, then it may be an opportunity to learn at least somewhat of it, what it is. And I have found if you push yourself in some of those areas, you may be surprised that, like, huh, I actually am pretty good at that because you had a mental block or there's something in the way of it or someone told you you weren't good at it. And pretty soon you're realizing, I kind of do understand that. And I've had that myself. I'm not good at some things, and then they go, "Okay, Patrick, let's find out. Let's press yourself in here. You can figure this out. You can do it. You're smart. Noodle it through." And lo and behold, it may not be as good as someone who's that's their strength. But for me, I was like, "Hey, I figured it out." And it's so important to have that. The cautionary tale is someone says, "Hey, you're really good at these things, Patrick, but I really want these things to be better in you."
Mm.
you know, and then that's when you come like, well, why? What is it about it? Is it mission critical for this role, or it could be that person's? If you're being managed by a leader, it could be that person's strength, and they want you to match
Mm.
theirs. So you have to be careful in that environment. And coach lots of people through that. Is, I have to be careful too as a coach when there's another leader on the team and I'm working with somebody who, obviously the leader's not on the call with us. So I have to say, listen, it's up to you. But if it was me, I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Boss, here's what I do really well, and here's what I excel at. Are these other things that you have in mind for me? Give me some ideas about why that's important. Help me understand that so I can really understand, how I can apply those. And if it is mission critical for your role, then you may have to fall on the sword and say, okay, I'm not good at that one, but I want to be better at it. So teach me, show me how to do it, and push it back on them and say, I'm open to that, and be really open to change. It's not always a great conversation because there could be some friction. But if you're open to change, open to learn things, I think it's terrific. And everyone's level of what that looks like. If that's a strength, if that's a towering strength, you're gonna slay it. But if it's not, you may get up to a bump up a couple different levels, but it's actually really good, or it's good enough for the role, it's good enough for whatever you're doing, and that's fine. That's all you need to do. You don't have to have that to be a towering strength all of a sudden, because you're thinking like, oh my God, I can never get to that. Well, you may not have to, just do a little bit better at it, and that could be just enough.
Mm. Wow, it's kind of tricky sometimes, right? Because it depends on the leader perspective or the capacity of the person to change, to accept and change, or even the effort that they're putting, right? So there's a lot of angles. Have you seen, especially sales, like because you coached a lot of people, so some people might hesitate, hey, should I, can I really do sales? Because I talk with a lot of people trying to transition, right, to tech sales, and they think about, do I have the transferable skills that are needed? Is that a skill that you saw that was missing a lot of times, and it was getting sellers in trouble with feedback and eventually low performance and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately and unfortunately, both sides of it where as a coach, people really struggling with it, and I've had to really have that tough conversation, like, hey, well, maybe this isn't for you
Hmm.
because of the situation. But I also think it's usually, my opinion is, usually it's a connection with the product or the services that they are going after. So in tech sales, for example, usually it's a higher ticket item, or it's a longer selling cycle. There's a lot more technology built around it. So if you're super good at technology, but you're
Hmm.
an introvert and you struggle with some of the nuances of sales, like, the setting things up, discovery questions, handling objections, closing, some of those, you're kind of afraid of that. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be good at sales. It just means that's not an area of what you really think is naturally strength. So with that, if you're doing discovery and you're really doing good at all the other things, it doesn't take much. Like I said, it may not be the strength, but if I could just bump you up and say, okay, now ask for the business. They go, oh, I'm so nervous. I get so sweaty. I'm thinking, that's good. It means you really care. But if you've done a really good job of setting it up, that close is not going to be such a big mountain to climb. It's just going to be saying, so what do you think, Davison? Would this bring value to your company? That's a close. And they go, yeah, I think so, or no. I mean, you don't have to make it such a big, like, ask for the beans. So to kind of answer your question, I think it depends upon the product and if there's a connection. And if you're connected with a product, dude, everyone can sell it,
Mm.
whatever it is, because you're so excited about it. It's the opposite that I find, and that people come to me and I'm thinking, like, you don't even like this company or this product. They go, yeah, but I've been there for a while, I make good money, da da da. I'm thinking, but you're not connecting, right? So you got to make a decision on that. I'm not your career counselor or career coach, but I can certainly say you're not connecting. So if someone's new to tech and they're really excited about a product and they just need a little bit of coaching on the sales, fundamentals, it's really easy to do. And they have to do a little bit of homework and then practice, practice, practice. And then for me, I think that's all they need, because they have the other thing they're excited about.
Mm. Wow, I was just having my own flashbacks and learning experiences. I'm listening here. There's so many.
Yeah,
Want to stop and ask you another question, brother? This is
yeah,
great. You see, 33 minutes, almost 35 minutes. We
yeah,
passed the
yeah.
target here, but This has been a great conversation. We're gonna have to bring you to a part two, Patrick,
Love it. Let's do it.
of this podcast.
Yeah.
Let's wow, let's close here with uh, what the let's say if you have a 3 minute speech or no speech because we're talking about sales. If you want to tell
Yeah.
people, hey, this is what I have seen. How can you quickly tap into superpowers and have a better life, have a better career? This is my advice. Uh, and then if
Yeah.
you want to hear more from Patrick, just follow him. Go on LinkedIn.
Totally. Yeah. I think the best thing I give it a lots of different advice. You can go on the website and see a bunch of stuff. A lot of it is everyone does it on them. They can do it themselves before they even contact me. And that's what I would actually prefer. If you can do all the work on your side of it and then come to our call, and I offer 30 minutes for free so we can just chit chat about it and where you're at. And so that way we can see if we're a good alignment. And if you've already done the work on it and you're ready to get busy, then it's terrific. And if you're not, if you just need some add a girl or add a boys to get going on stuff too, I do that too. So
Awesome.
I'm open.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Patrick. Please, I mean, no, please, like it's gonna be a privilege to go back and listen to this. A few minutes ago, you just dropped a lot of good, really, really good insights the whole time. This has been a great conversation. I love this topic because I was talking to Patrick that a lot of the coaching that we do, especially people getting to tech sales or getting sales, getting jobs in general, it's all about the mindset. It's all about recognizing your strengths. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I can always do better, improving. And but I know what I'm really good at it. And one of my second that I didn't mention to you, which is connectedness, which is the reason why we're here today, and that's the reason why I
Mm-hmm.
created this podcast because I love connecting with people and networking and learning from others. And like this conversation was the highlight of my day today, honestly. So
Oh,
I'm really grateful that we're able to connect. Thank you
me
so
too.
much.
Yeah, so much fun. I could talk about this stuff all the time, dude. So great that you have it out there for people to learn, and that's what it's all about. Love it.
Thank you. So follow Patrick on LinkedIn and connect with him, and so you can learn more about how to discover your superpowers. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we crack the code and uncover the strategies to break into tech sales. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to hack their way into this exciting career. Remember, hacking into tech sales isn't just a goal, it's a mission. Let's keep hacking, learning, and winning together. Catch you next time.